So boys and girls, you might remember that we were learning about still life, and we looked at the work of Paul Cezanne first, with his very plain tabletops and white dishes and plain backgrounds. And then we looked at the work of Henri Matisse, and he loved all those patterns and using beautiful fabrics with lots of different colors and stripes and patterns. So today you are going to be finishing up your project where you decided if you wanted to do it in the style of Paul Cezanne or Henri Matisse. Now, you're going to be starting off hopefully with something that you've painted. If not, we're going to finish it. And once you've finished painting it, you're going to be imagining a real apple. Because a real apple or orange are not just one solid color. There's actually lots of colors in there. If we look at this by Henri Matisse, you'll see that there's oranges and yellows and reds all in the same apple. And that's what they look like in real life. So once you finish painting, you're going to be choosing a pastel. Here I'm doing an orange, and I'm just putting a little bit of that pastel on part of the orange, just to add a few different colors. I'm putting some yellow onto my apple there so that it looks a little bit more real. If you even look on this one, you'll see that they added a little bit of white on there, so it looked like the sun or like the lights were like gleaming on it. So you can also take a white pastel and just put it on one part of it. I'm going to have an idea sheet on the table showing you how to add those different colors to your fruit, so you don't need to worry about not knowing how to do it. Now, another thing that you may want to do is to be careful with your pastels. If you look there, the pastels crunched a little bit and it ended up with dust. Please don't blow the dust. What you're going to do is just tap it onto the table. That's a good way to make friends. You don't want to blow it into people's faces. Now, some of you may want to go back to the black oil pastel and add just a little bit of a shadow underneath your fruit. I sometimes didn't even have to add more. I just kind of smudged the bottom part of what I had drawn. But now I want you to see how if you have a yellow platter, in this case, you can choose a color that's very similar to it and just sort of smudge that in along the edge. Do you see how I just chose a color that was very similar to the yellow, and I put that around the edge to add a little bit of contrast? Do you see what a difference that makes? And it only took just a few seconds. So today, when you want to add more details, you can smudge. You can also look at things that are next to the color wheel. So I used yellow and orange, and you used green and yellow. But you can also use colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. For example, I saw that I had a purple vase. Yellow is across from it on the color wheel. So I eventually started to add some yellow in there. So when I sat down, I first addressed all of my fruit. And here, because I had so many, I started with the red pastel. And I didn't color in the whole thing. You're not going to color in the whole thing. You're just going to add little smudges here and there, and then you're going to rub them in. Now, what you're going to find very quickly is that your fingers are going to start to get dirty. And if you use a finger that was just in a black oil pastel and then put it on a red oil pastel, you're going to end up with a bit of a mess. That's why when you wipe, make sure that you might have one finger for red and one finger for yellow, but if they start to get gross, we will have a wipe for each of you where you'll just keep wiping off your fingers, okay? Now, I'm also going to be having an idea sheet on the table that's going to show you all the different patterns, the different tablecloths, the different wallpaper, the different plates, the different flowers, just to inspire you. I decided on my wallpaper to do these tiny little marks. With pastels, you can smudge, like you saw me do. You can also do what's called stippling. That's a whole bunch of little dots. Like I told you before, I decided to put some yellow on top of the purple, and I'm not even coloring it in. I'm just adding this little bit of texture on there, and it ends up making it look much more interesting. I didn't like how my flowers looked kind of plain, so I added a little bit more blue and I put some pink. I noticed on here that they had sort of an interesting tablecloth, so I stole that idea and I started to draw that right on my tablecloth. This time I'm just drawing with the pastel, and this time I don't want to smudge it. You want to keep your hand up so that you are not smudging with your hand. If that happens to you, because it does happen sometimes, and you make a big mess, don't panic. But it does mean that you have to go back and kind of go back over to try and fix it. The nicest way to not get into that problem is just to make sure to keep the back of your hand up so that you don't smudge it. I decided to make my plate in there a little bit bluer. I decided to add a few details to that basket. I even went and I said, I think my tablecloth is a little boring there, so I added some stripes in there. So again, you can draw with the pastel, you can smudge with the pastel, you can do stippling with the pastel. Here you've just seen me do stripes and stippling and swirls, and every single time you run out of an idea, that's why I have the idea sheets there so that you can get some more ideas. Here I decided to keep the wall orange, but I thought, I'll just add a little bit of orange pastel. And then I noticed that I never finished drawing my flowers. No problem, you just go with the black oil pastel, you draw, and then rather than painting it in, you're gonna color it in with the pastels. I noticed something kind of sneaky that Henri Matisse did here, that even when he didn't draw flowers, he would make colors like they were there. Do you see how I'm adding little red dots just randomly, and it kind of ends up making it look like there's flowers? And then as you're working, please make sure that you're putting the pastels back on the plate and putting them where they're not going to rub into yucky colors. Go ahead and start now.